The backbenchers who never wanted a national inquiry. So does the Minister agree with me that the victims of these horrific crimes will never get the justice they deserve as long as we have a Labour government in charge?
Minister.
It's quite impressive that you would stand up and say that after a grooming victim stood up and spoke on these benches, but you know, I've learnt to expect it. When the honourable gentleman stands up and talks about cover-up, I understand that or maybe he's doing it for clicks, I don't know, but I understand that he thinks he's doing, you know, God's work in fighting this. The level of bad faith, the idea that it's easy to find a chair or easy to find people who want to step forward and take part in this process when it is mired in, I have to say, political point scoring like he just did. I have to say, I think that he should really question his own morality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This scandal arose because young, mainly white girls were systematically gang raped, and this was covered up by those in authority because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani origin. So it's all the more shocking that when calls for a national inquiry became public in January, the Prime Minister smeared campaigners as jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Comments like that are a disgrace and are what led to this scandal being covered up in the first place. Months later, just 2 days before facing a vote in Parliament, the government finally agreed to the inquiry. But it's clear the government never wanted this inquiry, they were forced into it. Perhaps that is why, months later, the government has said nothing substantive publicly and their inquiry is descending into chaos. What we have heard publicly is that victims and survivors on the liaison panel have no confidence in the government and no confidence in the inquiry. In the last 24 hours alone, 2 have resigned. Fiona Goddard resigned from the panel saying this: "The secretive conduct and conditions imposed on survivors by the government has led to a toxic and fearful environment with a high risk of people being silenced all over again." And hours later, Eliane Reynolds also resigned, saying the remit of the inquiry had, and I quote, been widened to downplay the racial and religious motivations behind our abuse. The Minister shakes her head. That is what Eliane Reynolds says.